Hi everybody, it's great to see so many people out today. Lots of familiar faces and some new ones too. I'm Bob K0NR and we're going to talk about VHF antennas. And this will be pretty introductory, but hopefully help you with a few ideas. The first 20 minutes is really oriented towards how do I improve my HT, and then the second part talks about mobile and base antennas for VHF. And I have my lovely assistant, Joyce. Okay, so let's, you know what I did? Lovely assistant. I think I left my HT in the car. See, you gotta have back. Yeah, actually, I can just borrow some. We have plenty. Do you have rubber duck for it? Okay. That'll work. All right, thanks, Lisa. Okay, we love these handheld radios, right? They do a lot. They're all, hand check in your hand, ready to go. Little low on power, 5 watts. And I always say the best 3 ways to improve the performance of your HT is the antenna, and the antenna. So let's do just a little bit of antenna basics first. There's two antennas we talk a lot about in ham radio. One is the dipole, so you kind of see that on the left here. Two quarter wave sections, total of a half wave. And another common antenna is the quarter wave. Basically the same idea, but I put a ground plane underneath it, and that requires a reflection, or provides a reflection off of that quarter wave. It turns out these two things basically work the same. A vertical dipole and a quarter wave vertical with ground plane give you the same kind of performance. But the key point here is with quarter wave vertical, you've got to have a ground plane or maybe some kind of counterpoise. And what do we do with typical rubber duck or typical HT? You get the rubber duck antenna. Now, Lisa has already upgraded her antenna, so she does not have the rubber duck here. But you know what they look like, right? And I call those the world's most convenient chromie antenna. Because they are very convenient, they do what they need to do. They're really great when you put it on your belt or put it in your pocket or whatever. But honestly, they're not that great of an antenna. That's why some people get frustrated with performance. It's basically a shortened vertical radiator. I'll show you a couple pictures in a second. And it suffers from the no ground plane problem. It's trying to be kind of like a quarter wave vertical, although it's too short. It's like height challenge. And it doesn't have the ground plane underneath it. I've measured a whole bunch of these rubber ducks, and they do vary. Some are much better than others, but I'd say on average they're about 8 dB worse than a dipole. So that's pretty poor. Here's some that's the rubber duck. Here's some pictures. This is off Baofeng. I tore it apart and tore the thing off. You can see it's just a coil coming up through there. Here's a little bit different one. That one I think came off a Yaesu. You can see the construction's a little better and a little different. That's what your rubber duck is. So a lot of times people go to this thing. They say, I know what the problem is. This probably isn't going to fit. The rubber duck's just too short, so I'm going to get a longer one. So there's all kinds of different antennas that are about 19 inches long, right? Because that's quarter wave for 2 meters. This one I think also works on 70 centimeters, and sometimes they'll put a little tuning gizmo in the middle to help with that. This one does not have that. I'll use these sometimes. They're a little bit better than a rubber duck, but actually they're not that great because they don't have a ground plane. So what can you do about that ground plane? Well, one thing that people like to do is okay, I can't have a ground plane, but I'll have a counterpoise. I'll basically have a wire hanging off my HT that touches the outside shell of my antenna connector, and I make it about a quarter wavelength long for 2 meters, and these things really do work. You can buy these, you can make them yourself. They actually do pretty well. And if you think about it, if I have a wire hanging down, I got a quarter wave up and a quarter wave wire down, I sort of have a dipole, don't I? Right? Got my half-wave dipole there. And if that works for you, that's a great solution. Even with the rubber duck, it works pretty well. I don't like wires hanging down. What I like are these half-wave antennas, and I've got a number of them. This is MFJ, I think. 2 meter half-wave, obviously pretty small right here, and if I extend it, it's a half-wave on 2 meters. And it turns out, if you remember half-wave, I think I've heard that before. Oh, it's basically the same thing as a half-wave dipole, except we're gonna, instead of feeding it from the center like a lot of your typical dipole, we're gonna feed it from the end. And sure enough, inside here is a little matching network, because when you feed a half-wave from the end, it's a high impedance point. It's not 50 ohms, so you gotta have something in there. But MFJ has worked all that out for us, and so these things work remarkably well, much better than your rubber duck. What's the disadvantage? Well, you might poke your eye out or poke somebody's eye out. I've also broken quite a few of these. You need to be gentle with them, because if you do things like go to put it away and just sort of smash them together, I've kinked them, and so they aren't the sturdiest thing in the world, but they work really well. And then a few years ago, okay, that's a picture of the MFJ. Extended and collapsed. And then a few years ago, I discovered this one on Amazon, and it's the two-way radio RH770. It is also a half-wave, but it's got the tuning coil in the center, which people ask me what that is. I always say that's the magic lump that lets it work on 70 centimeters while it also works on 2 meters. And I've tested these and compared them to other antennas. These actually work quite well, and they are still $17 delivered to your doorstep if you're on Amazon Prime. And that is what Lisa has installed on her radio. Okay, another really cool antenna is the roll-up J-pole. And I've got one of those here. They're about 54 inches long. You can hang it up in the tree. You can, if you don't like this flopsy look, you can put it inside a piece of plastic pipe. You can hang it from a fishing pole. You can hang it in a window. Like if you have a tall window, you can sort of put this at the top. And what this thing is, it really is a half-wave radiator, along with a quarter-wave tuning stub. So again, you got a half-wave that's going to radiate just like a dipole. We're feeding it from the end, so we have an impedance matching problem, and the quarter-wave matching stub takes care of that for us. Pretty common design. I actually bought this one off of eBay. There are many vendors out there that make them, or you can build one yourself. Here's one particular design I found on the internet, and you could get some. That says 300 ohm twin lead. This is ladder line, but this is a really handy thing to have in your kit. You know that I'm out camping, okay, and I string this up in a tree or something. Yeah, question.
So when you're looking to buy an antenna for a handheld, is it just this one standard? You can buy any antenna, it'll match up to any handheld, or are there like ones that match for this manufacturer or that manufacturer, or there's different standards for one or else?
Yeah, good question. For the most part, any antenna will work with any handheld. Okay. The thing that we'll talk in a minute about connectors. You want to make sure you got the right connector. Good question, thanks. So anyway, this is a good thing to have in your kit. Camping, hiking. I've used this for soda once in a while, where I just want to put up a Omni antenna, because I don't want to worry about having to point anything. I'll just string this up in the trees, and it works quite well. Okay, mag mount antenna. In particular, this quarter wave mag mount antenna. So we've got, again, it's about 19 inches, right? So it's quarter wave on 2 meters, and it's got this coil in the center. That is another magic lump that makes this thing work, allows this thing to work pretty well on both 2 meters and 70 centimeters. So that's all good. You know, if you have your HT in the car, you're basically inside a metal box, right, for most vehicles. And so you really want to get your antenna outside of that car. This is an easy way to do that. You plop it on top of the roof. Hopefully you have a metal roof, and then you can tell. I bring this in through the door. It's been a little bit mangled over the years, but it's still workable. And you bring it through the door or the window, either one, and then you connect up this guy to your antenna, or to your HT, sorry. Oh, this is a really handy thing to have for other reasons too. You know, you're at home, you just plop the sucker on top of a metal filing cabinet, or like here, I can just plop it on top of that cart. This thing also needs a quarter wave, or it needs a ground plane. And that's not going to make a great ground plane, but it's going to be adequate. I've taken these things and just plopped them against metal door frames, like over there, on top of the refrigerator, whatever works. So it's, I'd say this is another handy thing to have in your kit. It's just a nice flexible antenna you can use for lots of things. Okay, antenna mounting. I thought this one was pretty clever. I think, anybody do this in their attic with just a piece of sheet metal? Yeah, in the back there. You can take a mag mount antenna, get yourself a big piece of sheet metal, plop it down, and now you got an attic antenna. Of course, it can't be aluminum, right? Because aluminum's not going to attract to the magnet, so it's got to be steel or some ferrous metal, I guess. And then here's Joyce and I out doing summits on the air. Would you like to pull up the Yagi antenna there? So this is that 3-element Yagi shown in the picture. It's all wrapped up right there, so we can stick it in our packs. But would you mind assembling that for me? That's actually her usual job. It's like, here's the antenna. Why don't you put it together while I fiddle around with other radio stuff? This thing has gain of about 6 dB. It's made by the Arrow Antenna Company. Their stuff is pretty good, and they're called the Arrow Antenna Company because the elements are actually made out of arrow shafts. That's kind of the construction method that they like to use, and it works pretty well. They're all threaded and everything. There's another look at it, 3 elements, arrowantennas.com. Okay, antenna connectors. Yeah, you do need to be worried about which connector you have on your HT. Back in the old days, a lot of HTs had BNCs, but they're really fading out now, right? Usually these days you have SMA connectors are the most common. And of course, we can't just have one SMA connector, we have 2, right? We've got the SMA male and the SMA female. Most of the Japanese radios tend to go with SMA female. Most of the Chinese ones go with SMA male. That's not universally true, but you definitely, if you're buying any kind of connectors, cables, antennas, whatever, make sure you get the right one. There's an SMA on a cable. And for HT stuff, right, we're not going to be using the PL259s, right? We're going to use something smaller. Just a touch on coaxial cables. You may need to buy some cables to hook things up. For HT kind of work, we're going to typically have short cables, right? We're probably not going to be running a long distance. and we want it to be small and convenient, so that kind of points us to RG58, or maybe RG8X, it's not that much bigger. We're probably not gonna use the bigger cables for this. Make sure they're 50 ohms. I noticed, there's a lot of good sources for pre-made cables, which is probably what you want to do for this kind of application. You can go to HRO or any of those. Amazon has a whole bunch of cables. Watch out for quality variation, and I notice sometimes they'll get really loose about whether it's a 50 ohm cable or whether it's a 70 ohm cable. You really want to make sure you got 50 ohms. And we have our 2-meter Yagi. Step into the picture. So there's our 2-meter Yagi antenna. So it didn't take too long to put together. And let's see, let's hold it vertical for vertical polarization, and horizontal for horizontal. It does both. It does everything. Yeah, this antenna's been a lot of places. You can tell it's well worn. Okay, thank you. If you don't have the right connector, there's all kinds of adapters out there. You can always adapt it. You just have to kind of be careful what you order, that you get exactly what you wanted. And then this is kind of a handy deal here. A short cable can really keep the strain off of your HT connector, right? It gives it a little more flexibility. Okay, so that's the HT. How do I make my HT better piece? Rubber duck antenna is fine. It's convenient and crappy. Antennas are a great way to improve your signal. Pay attention to cables and connectors. Just try some things. You'll be surprised what works. Yeah, John.
You mentioned the Tiger Tail and the MFG's Unscorpion one. How do those two compare?
Let's see. The Tiger Tail with a quarter wave is going to give you a pretty decent dipole, and so it's going to be about the same as the telescoping half wave, right? You see this recurring theme, right? If I get to it, I always say, never underestimate getting a half wave radiator up in the air, right? That's kind of a basic antenna that works really well. And so in this case, you might get there with the Tiger Tail, or you might get there with the half wave telescopic thing. Yes?
Is there a place in down that sells radio stuff or like adapters or something?
Yeah.
Is there one more?
No, this is our world these days. I mean, Radio Shack's pretty much gone. There's just not a lot. So most people are doing mail order, Amazon, HRO, or run up to HRO and Denver. You need to go up there anyway and look at all the radios. Yeah.
What's the best HT that you've found that works great?
What's the best HT I've found? There is no best HT. It depends what you want to do. I think, like a lot of, I'm not exactly anti-Baofeng. Just understand when you buy a $30 radio, you get a $30 radio. I try and encourage people to move up to like a Yaesu FT4, which has, I'd say, similar technology to the Baofeng, but they implemented it a lot better. So, but it's over twice the price. It's about $90. So that'd be a good choice. There's also an FT65 that's very similar. And then you sort of get into kind of the high-end HTs, which do D-Star, DMR, have APRS built in and all that. That's probably not your first radio, right? That's maybe later, depending on what you're interested in.
I was just over at HRO this Wednesday, and their shop is full of equipment, and they're happy to show you any of the HTs that they have installed.
Yeah, HRO is a great shop.
And antennas, and they have a nice one. I think you mentioned in the class the diamond vertical.
Yeah, yep. So HRO is a great place to go. It's not huge. It's kind of a small storefront. But it's amazing what they have there. And in my my experience is the staff there is really great and friendly and will answer all your questions. Yeah.
When I'm being soda, I want to monitor sometimes as I'm hiking up. So I'll take that MFJ halfway and just reduce it down to the 19 inches.
Yep.
And let it act like a 19 inch until I get to the summit and it won't be hitting branches. On the doodle band one that you showed, could you do the same thing? Could you just do the 19, would it act the same way? Would it?
Yeah, it probably, pretty much work. Or something like this might be, it's another thing to have,
Right,
right?
I could do anything, yeah. And then do the, with that, let it just angle off.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, one more question.
That ladder, what does it mean, that you can buy one? How would you mean?
Well, look for roll-up J-pole on,
Okay, that's fine, I just wondered how you would,
and actually, I think when I was looking around for this, I found a lot more vendors on eBay. And then KB3 KAI, I think, is one of those. There's another guy too. There's a bunch of them out there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going then. Thanks for those questions.